So, what is Apollo? Apollo is a code name for a new project from Adobe that aims to create a cross-operating system runtime that allows developers to leverage their existing web development skills. That includes Flash, Flex, HTML, AJAX, and PDF to build and deploy desktop-rich internet applications. It's important to note a couple of things about this. First, Apollo is not just about Flash and Flex. HTML, AJAX, JavaScript are first-class citizens within Apollo. Next, the applications that Apollo targets are really rich internet applications. If you're a web developer already building and deploying web applications and rich internet applications to the desktop, then Apollo might be something that you're interested in. Let's look at what the full application stack looks like. You can see at the very bottom, we have operating systems. And these are traditionally where desktop applications have been developed for. The downside to targeting the operating systems, though, is that your application primarily can only run on that operating system. It cannot run cross-platform. And you also have to use lower-level APIs, which makes it more difficult to develop. The Apollo runtime sits on top of these operating systems. So as a developer, you only target the Apollo runtime. You don't have to target the lower-level operating system APIs. This has two advantages. First, you can build your application using higher level technologies. Specifically, you use web technologies such as Flash, Flex, HTML, and JavaScript, making this type of development much more accessible to web developers. Next, when you deploy your application, you don't have to worry about which operating system the application is going to run on. Apollo takes care of that. You simply distribute your Apollo application, and it'll run consistently across all supported platforms. You can see here we have two applications, a Flash-based or Swift-based application and HTML-based applications. These run on top of the Apollo runtime. They're built using web technologies, so it's very easy then to go out to the web, pull in data, pull in web services, and do so in a way where these applications will function regardless of your online or offline. If you look at overall, Apollo sits in between the desktop and the browser. For 1.0, it's probably a little closer to the browser than the desktop. This gives Apollo applications a lot of the advantages of using web technologies that are today deployed in the browser, while also taking advantage of running on the local operating system on the desktop. So things like being able to drag and drop applications, launching them locally. Basically, with an Apollo application, you get the best of both worlds. The best of running on the desktop while also getting some of the advantages of technologies that are traditionally run within the browser. How are Apollo applications composed? What are they actually made of? Applications can be built using a number of technologies, and there's two primary application technologies within Apollo. The first is Flash, and that's based on Flash Player 9, which includes ActionScript 3, the new ActionScript virtual machine, and also includes support for Flex 2. The second primary application technology is HTML. This is a full HTML rendering engine that includes support for JavaScript, CSS, AJAX techniques, XHTML, and pretty much everything you'd expect in a modern HTML rendering engine. Now, either of these technologies, Flash or HTML, can be used as the basis for an Apollo application. Furthermore, Flash content can contain HTML content, and HTML content can contain Flash content. So your application can mix and match these technologies. And the integration of those technologies is done on a very low level. Finally, any of these combinations of application technologies can also leverage PDF, although that support is not available in the Alpha 1 release. Apollo exposes a number of APIs and functionalities to application developers. These are APIs that allow them to take advantage of being outside of the browser and on the desktop. Some of these APIs include the ability to build applications that work regardless of whether they're online or offline. Applications that can run in the background without any UI. Full network stack, and this includes things such as full HTTP support, XML, RPC, SOAP, and REST-based web services, and binary and XML sockets. Apollo also provides a full File I/O API that allows you to read and write files from the file system. And finally, Apollo gives designers and developers full control over the windowing modes for their application. You can either choose to use the Chrome or the windowing skin that's provided by the operating system or completely design and develop your own. Apollo also provides a layer of desktop integration. Apollo applications run on the desktop, and the Apollo team has spent a lot of time ensuring that Apollo applications feel just like native applications. This includes things like how applications are installed and where application shortcuts are placed when they're installed. So for example, on Windows, an application will put a shortcut on the Start menu and maybe on the desktop, and on Mac it'll put it in your Applications folder. Apollo also has support for drag and drop, both between applications and between the operating system and the Apollo application. Also have rich clipboard support, the ability for applications to communicate with each other, and the ability for applications to tie into the system-level notifications. It's important to note, though, that many of these features are not currently implemented in the alpha release of Apollo. What do we mean by alpha? The current release on Labs is an alpha release. It's a pre-release version of Apollo. And what exactly does alpha mean? Well, first, it's not feature complete. All of the features that will be included in Apollo 1.0 have not been implemented yet. These include things such as full HTML support, PDF support, and a number of the other APIs. Second, of the features that are included in the alpha, some of them are not completely implemented. For example, the native windowing API is only partially implemented. It does not have support for multiple types of windows. Next, this release is targeted primarily at Flex developers. While HTML developers can build top-level applications using just HTML and JavaScript, we're not targeting those types of applications for the first alpha. We'll have another pre-release release in the next couple of months that targets HTML developers. And finally, this is an alpha, so you're going to find bugs. It's important to keep this in mind as you start to play around with Apollo, and you may or may not run into issues. Make sure to read the release notes to find a list of known issues in this build. Now that we've done a quick overview of what Apollo is, let's look at how to actually install the Apollo runtime. We'll do that in the next movie.